Maury Rogow says that 99% of companies lose when they confuse prospects by talking features and they lack differentiation. And he solves this critical problem by creating stories and AI workflows and videos for brands just like you so that you can sell on autopilot and you get to have a life again. So we're going to talk today about why buyers say no and how to get them to say yes, not by any kind of brute force, but by being more playful and careful, tactful, strategic with our storytelling, with our messaging, and standing out in our own way. And he has a new book that's about to come out. It's called Why Buyers Say No, Stop Discounting, Close Bigger Deals, and Build Recurring Revenue. Sell your superpower in an AI world. So if you feel like maybe you're losing this marketing game, well, you're not losing to competition, you're losing to confusion. So we're here to deconfuse, if that is a word or could be a word. So Mr. Maury Rogow, nice to see you.
Nice seeing you. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. That was a great intro, by the way. That's exactly what I talk to people about every day. So thank you.
Nice. So I feel like I have an A+ gold star already. So what do you think I might have left out of the introduction? What are you all about?
Well, I'm this weird mixture, this Venn diagram of 3 different careers. So, after 30 years, I've got a combination of Hollywood storytelling. I was a producer in Hollywood. So I produced movies and 1,000 commercials. And before that, I had 15 years in high tech. So I was at the company that became the NVIDIA of the day. So I was with a company called Geotel, and we were extremely small and extremely expensive software. And this is where I started learning, I've got to tell the right story. And even more important, I've got to ask the right questions so that I can get that right story built for customers. So, I was head of sales in a region there, and then we ended up selling to Cisco systems. So 20 years ago, that was the NVIDIA of the day. So there's the high tech career, there's the Hollywood career, and now I'm this mix of both of those. So now I'm helping high tech companies from startup to Fortune 100 companies tell their stories so that they stop losing and they truly stop looking like, acting like, sounding like their competition. Because when a customer's confused, they're going to do the only thing they really understand, buy the lowest price. Because if you're not clear, you're a price tag. So we've really got to make people stand out. And I think this is the marketer's dilemma. So when I really tapped into that, I found it so fun because I made all these commercials, in Hollywood, for all these different brands. It really came down to what's the story that we can tell for them to make them unique. And so anyway, so those are some of the things that maybe didn't come out in that initial profile, but it's been a really fun career.
It sounds like it. You've seen some things and you have those transferable skills because no one can take those away from you, right? Like maybe you work for a company and the company ends, or your career ends or changes, or you pivot, you do something else, but like you bring all those things that you learned along the way, and you ideally become a better human being and hopefully a higher paid and a human being that helps others even greater ways. And so I'm curious, just real quick, like the Hollywood career, like the commercials or the movies, is there anything that we should have seen? Like, is there anything that like is your claim to fame?
I can't say claim to fame, but there's a few that you definitely would recognize. I was in a movie called Ocean's 13. So it was really pretty amazing. It was on set with Al Pacino. I had a little scene with Al Pacino, who's a really famous actor in 70s, 80s, 90s, and still to a lot of folks. But that was an amazing moment for me. And but they were all there. So Ocean's 13 is Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, George Clooney. The list goes on. I was a high roller gambler. I had one line, but I was in that movie and I wasn't producing that yet. That was the first thing I did when I got to Hollywood. I was like, I want to see what it's like to be on set. So I started making the phone calls, and coming from sales, I'll just pick up the phone and call these folks. Well, who do you need to call? Oh, the casting agency. I'll call the casting agency, see if I can get myself on set. So did that. So anyways, Ocean's 13, there was another TV show at the time called Entourage. So I was on that as a press, kind of a reporter. And interestingly, I was in the movie Pandemic before there was a pandemic, and that hit the world. A few other things. Oh, a very fun one was I literally just like I said, I got out there, I just dove into everything. I went to an audition. It turned out to be for this new game show called Deal or No Deal. And I ended up being on Deal or No Deal and,
Mm.
and won the suitcase. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you lived a life, and you use your salesmanship skills. You talk to the decision maker, right, in salesmanship terms. And you mentioned already off the bat, like some of these really cool ideas that like questions are so important, and that's really underrated, understated, right? This idea that like, well, goal setting. If you don't ask a question, then it'll just be some vague thing. Or if you're writing or plotting or planning or outlining, if you just kind of make little bullet points and notes, it's like, well, what am I saying? What's the detail? How do I know when I've completed my objective? Versus you ask a question of anyone. If I ask a question of you, it's like black or white if you've answered the question or not. And then if the question is answered, it's like, okay, now what's the next question to move on to? And at least for any kind of like creativity, like it helps me so much in so many ways. And then you also mentioned this idea of the storytelling can be lacking with some people, right? If they're more of like if they're the commodity, or if they try to blend in. And so so what's why buyers say no about? Is it centered around the missing storytelling, or like what's the cool factor of it?
Yeah. So Why Buyers Say No was built from this 30 years of history watching really great companies with really great products lose. Some of them, many of them go out of business. So when I started turning them into my clients, they did not go out of business. And I'm not being arrogant there. I just had the formulas from dozens of years doing this. So I was really tired of seeing people, lose. And what they were doing is going out and pitching, presenting, and even very successful companies. You get into this pattern as a salesperson or as a marketing person. You're putting out something on the website because it's worked so many times before. And I also look at this as one of the worst things to do. It worked for them, so it'll work for us. So you'll always be second, right? And that second can fall very, very fast because now you're competing one against the other and you're not the original. So if you're not the original, you don't have the original story, you don't have something unique, again, people are going to buy the lowest price or the established relationship. Somebody has a great relationship with this software company, you're coming in the door, but you're just telling them things they've already heard. You're using jargon and buzzwords. And so you're going to walk right out and you're not going to get the deal. So the book is put together to answer that question. Why buyers say no? Here's the reasons. You're telling the wrong story at the wrong time, most likely to the wrong audience. Here's how to do it right. And there's 5 main sales stages that you need to tell the right story. So I'm going to back this up to the questions. The only way you can get to the right story is by asking them, asking your audience, asking customers or prospects questions so that you can learn. And so I formulated what I call the epic story. There's about 7 in the book, but the epic story is you start with empathy, you find a problem, what's the impact of that problem, what's the change or call to action, right? So what's the transformation? Because everybody's going to go through a transformation, whether you're in a movie or whether you're in marketing or whether you're buying software, there's where you are now and the gap to where you want to be. Your solution is going to fill that gap to bring them to where they want to be. So the epic story is, I can make one up in seconds, but basically it's, empathy. I understand where you are. I've been there before. The problem is that we've seen here. I'll just do it. So most companies out there, marketers listening right now are probably saying, you know what, we're too much like our competition, but my boss keeps telling me, go look like them, put those posts together. And my challenge would be, we talked about this in my book, is go and look at your website. Now pull up 1 or 2 of your competitors' websites. Forget the logo, forget the color scheme and the font. Now, if you're a customer, can you tell the difference between you and them? Your customer probably can't. You might be using best service, highest quality, white glove treatment, all these trite terms that anybody can use and doesn't make you different at all. So you have to find out what truly makes you unique, what makes you different, what makes you special. And that Venn diagram, what makes you special and unique, that will become your superpower so that you're memorable. You stand out and you stand apart from everybody in your industry and you become the go-to. And when you become the go-to, your margins aren't shrinking. Your margins are growing. You can sell at a higher amount and you can sell more because you're now the leader in the industry, the thought leader. So it all ties together through the book to how to go about losing, to switch it, ask the right questions, tell the right stories, work with customers. That obviously you've got to have a good product, but this is how you thrive. This is how you basically you're going to help your company thrive or die based on the story that you tell.
Very awesome. And it seems like the way you set that up was like there's like the losing paths, right? There's the competing on price, there's the trying to break through the established relationship, and then the better way forward that's more sustainable and makes more sense is the storytelling. And I love how like you couldn't help but tell a story, right? And like that's one of those super weird parts about human brain, isn't it? That like it's like universal, right? We all love stories, we communicate, we learn through stories, and it's like it's just we need some reminding, right? That it's not about the facts and figures. We need to tell this fun, compelling story. And you're mentioning about this, like your superpower or your uniqueness, and like how do we arrive at that? Like, is it a matter of like figuring out what others say about us, or looking at the patterns, or like if someone says, okay, story, I'm sold on that idea, but then maybe they have like a lack of self-esteem when they say, well, I don't know what my superpower is. How do we figure that out?
Yeah. So it's not easy to figure out what your superpower is. And again, what I'm saying, you personal brand, you might be an accountant out there listening to this. You probably might be a marketing agency out there. You might actually be working for a major company. And it's the brand. What's the special superpower there? Sometimes it's the founder story. And I actually love the founder story because that's how you found this particular job or this particular company and why it's so important. And here's where everybody goes wrong. Everybody goes wrong because they found it because it's going to make them a better income. They're going to make a lot of money. They might go IPO with this company. Your customer doesn't want to hear that. That doesn't help in any way. That helps you. But really what it should be is you're doing this because you love helping people. You love helping people in that customer position. You love working, like I actually love working with sales and marketing people because they're creatives, but they many times aren't realized that. Some marketers, design, certainly we can see some creativity there, but salespeople are always playing. What's the machination? What's the next step? What's the best next step? How can I make this happen? How can I make this fit? So there's creativity comes in there. So it's really fun working with those people. And I used to be that people, right? I was in sales. And the reason I went into sales is, I shoveled coal in my house that was 17 degrees when I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was freezing all winter long. We had coal. So not that that's the cleanest or greatest, that's just what was downstairs. So I shoveled coal every 4 hours, day and night, all night, to keep that place warm. And I did not want to grow up having that happen. So I thought, well, the only place that I know that I can help myself and I can really determine that I can get to a better place is if I can help people tell their stories. And I mean, help sell. There's going to be a great product out there. Are they selling it the right way, or can I help them? And that's where I felt my path would be. And so I moved back to Pittsburgh. I love my hometown, but I lived in Los Angeles and I live in Florida now. So I live where it's warm because I don't want to be shoveling coal, and that was 30 years ago. So, those are those little pieces. I didn't think I would say that on this podcast, but those are little pieces that become a part of me. And that becomes, in a sense, my superpower. I'm going to fight against, the cold out there and help people grow their business as much as I can. And so back to that epic story, or back to what we were talking about, you don't want to talk about you for no purpose. You're going to talk about you so that you can help somebody else. I don't want to shovel coal again, so I'm going to help people grow their businesses. And that's going to help me live in a nice place and be able to take care of my family. Whatever that reason is to get to that core, that's inside of each person. That's why it's not easy. And that's why there's a whole book about this. And I have these classes to help people find what makes them unique, what makes them special and different. Yes, you definitely want to ask other people. You definitely want to dig into your own, your own past and your own history, because you've got to stand out and be different and unique. People love that.
Oh yeah. And I love the end result of, you do all this kind of research, self-examination, the surveying of people behind the scenes, just to kind of like like distill it, and then what we end up seeing as the end result is like the tip of the iceberg there, right? And we see like, okay, here's what I'm about, and you can tell that it's fleshed out, but it's like it's concise and it gets my attention quickly, but it's like no one understands or even appreciates the work that you did behind the scenes just to get to that point to say, hey, here's my quick message, right? And we've seen those kind of the polished products where you're like, I can't tell why the iPhone or the iPad like looks so good, or why the website looks so good, but hey, whatever they did, it's working for me, right? They thought these kind of things through. And even like when you were telling the story about like the shovel and the coal, like you said, it's unexpected, but I could like feel the emotion, and that's something that like I don't know if I forget about it, but it's like I need consistent reminding of like, okay, well, don't just tell a story, but figure out the emotions and the triggers. And can you unpack that for us? Because I know you're all about like you want to turn those strangers into leads and work in the emotional triggers. So I mean, how much of like the emotional aspect goes into thinking all the storytelling through?
Heavily, heavily. So emotions there because, like you said, we learn from the best stories. If I go back to thinking about my high school, the storytelling teacher is the one that I remember, and that was American history. I remember all these things. I don't remember the date that it happened, but I remember the story of this in this war and this kind of thing because the teacher was a great storyteller. So thinking that through, when you think about the emotions, what I learned in sales, but couldn't identify it yet until I moved to Hollywood and I really, really, truly analyzed movies and commercials. And that's when I said, you know what? I think I can start making commercials because I figured this out. There are 5 main buying emotions, 5 emotions that help people buy. And that is if they see themselves in the other side, right? They see the transformation of themselves, and I call it the stuff. So what's the stuff? Sexy or it sizzles. T, does it touch my heart, nostalgia, caring, feeling, family. U, unexpected, completely unexpected, outside the norms of everybody else in the industry. You're going to stand out. And the last 2 are the Fs, funny. If you can be funny and make somebody chuckle or laugh, you will be memorable. Most corporate clients are too risk averse to take that shot, so they go for humor, but that can also work. And the last F, of course, fear. Fear of missing out. Fear, lack of security. Think about insurance companies. And then what I started doing is taking 2 of them and combine them together. So some famous examples, or more famous examples, would be funny and fear mixed together. You can think of, State Farm Insurance and Allstate and Geico. They're going with the fear of it used to be just these accident commercials, and it was, horrifying. You didn't want to watch them. Now they mixed in a gecko, or now they mixed in, the accident museum, right? These crazy accidents, or Mayhem himself. They personified an adverb with a person, right? He's mayhem. He's going to go out and cause mayhem. So they're mixing fear and funny together, and it works beautifully. And those campaigns have been running for, over a decade. So the stuff, sexy, touching, unique, funny, fear. So those are the 5 main emotions with many pieces underneath. But if you can have your brand take a stance in 1 or 2 of those areas, you will then be different and you'll be unique. Because most people are going with just safe taglines. Like I said before, they're going with, high quality, best service, etc. It's all trite. It's all jargon. Nobody's going to listen to that. So stand out.
Yeah, have fun with it, right? Play with it, explore some alternatives. And I can definitely see how with this stuff or acronym, you can identify if like you're missing something in your story, or with the combining, you can kind of just like create the magic, right? Create the fun spark. And that's what storytelling is all about, right? It's like things that are just kind of like the concrete logic, it comes alive, right? And it becomes something that is living on its own. And so we need to be thinking these things through and be working on our marketing, so that way we're not just the same as everyone else. That way we can tap into what people want. And I know that you have some opinions here, right? And if you could ban one thing from modern marketing, what do you think that might be?
Well, I think I said it a couple of times. I hate to be repetitive, but jargon and inside baseball, get rid of it. inside baseball, meaning this is the industry language that we know of in this office, or I'm so smart because I can drop all these acronyms. It's industry jargon. Get rid of it. Everybody in your industry says that. So do the thing that's different. Explain it a little bit easier. And what's interesting now, and you can actually see this because of the President of the United States speaks at between a 4th grade and a 7th grade level. So everybody can understand. Again, I'm not taking any stance politically here. I'm just saying if you run that through any kind of analysis, those speeches are brought down to one of the most simplistic levels that we've had in our history. So people are now getting used to that. News channels are changing, so it's less sophisticated instead of more. So speak simply in your way with words that people really can understand instead of trying to look smart. Try to be the most interested person in the room, not the most interesting. That's different from a lot of politics and so forth. Just be interested. Ask the questions. Find out what makes people unique. Find out what their problems are. One of the best questions I ask, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call do too, on this podcast, is what's the problem you're trying to solve? What is it you're trying to solve? What are you trying to do with your company, with your software? So ask the right questions. Be passionate. Care about those people getting what they need, and you're going to be far forward than the person that walks in with jargon, tech talk, and inside baseball.
Very nice. And when they say don't use jargon, what comes to mind for me is 10,000 songs in your pocket, right? If you said it's 10 gigabytes, well, what's a gigabyte? What does that mean? But 10,000 songs, like any literally like a 4-year-old could understand it. And then it also that's built in like, well, there's the subtext of like what problems it solve. Well, I don't have to carry around these bulky CDs, right? It's right there in one place. And it's like, man, I wonder how many iterations that they came through, or like whenever you see some kind of marketing campaign, like the Mayhem and actor Dean Winters, it's like, well, like how many different ways did they try that? Did they try like a woman, a man? Like it's fun to think about. Like they must have really like tried so many different iterations until it stuck. So it's just so cool to think about the magic and how the sausage is made, so to speak. And we've jumped around so many different aspects of marketing and storytelling and having fun, but you're the star of the show here, right? You said I need to be asking those questions and be interested, not interesting. So speaking to that, do you think there might be a missing question in our conversation that I should be asking you? I just don't know what to ask you.
Is there a question that you should be asking? I would love it if you ask how to get my book.
How do we get your book?
Anybody that's listening to this, I will send you a copy personally. The first 10 people, just go to LinkedIn, say you've heard this. Obviously, the website will be Why Buyers Say No. You can register there. Just mention Robert's name, or contact me via email, etc. But LinkedIn will be the best because I'm there and I've 30-some thousand followers, which is wonderful. So I really am there a lot. So ask me for the book. I will personally send you a copy. I'm very proud of it. It's right here. Here's literally the first copy that I dedicated to my daughter on the inside. So I have more coming in the next couple of weeks. I would love to be able to share this with you and all the insights that it has.
Very cool. And so to find him on LinkedIn, he's Maury Rogow, and that's Maury is the first name, and Rogow. You find him, you connect, you send a message, and that's just a good thing to do in general, right? You listen to a podcast. We're not celebrities. We're not Al Pacino. You can look this guy up, and he's a real person just like you and me, right? He's accessible. You send a letter to Al Pacino, you'll never get a response. But with this person, he's a business man just like you are, and so you can add him on LinkedIn, send him that message, tell him you loved him on the show, ask for that free copy of the book, and he'll send it to you. And that's the magic of the one-to-one personal connection. And so that's Maury Rogow on LinkedIn. And then the website that we mentioned is whybuyerssayno.com, where you can just find out about how decisions stall, you become replaceable, trust erodes, margin disappears, and instead of racing to the bottom, then you need to by maybe think these things through and pursue a better strategy. So that way you don't blend in, because blending in means you struggle. Struggling means your business dies. And we don't want that, right? You want to stand up and stand out and stand up. And so whybuyersayno.com, and you can get the listen to the first few chapters, get an early copy. But we really want you to send that message to Maury Rogow on LinkedIn, and that way you can just tap into your story being your superpower and so much more. But before I let you go, Mr. Maury, it's time for the scary part of the podcast where I try to stump you. I try to put you on the spot by asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as fun or interesting quote or lesson?
Yeah. I think the one that's most appropriate for right now is AI, right? So AI makes content cheap, but clarity can make you wealthy. AI can make content cheap, but clarity is what makes people wealthy. Clear goal, clear decision, clear messaging with your questions.
Very nice. AI is a good starting point, isn't it? You look at even like Hollywood movies, right? You can tell they templated it out, they figured out what the plot should be, but then you have to add your own unexpectedness and all the letters of stuff, right? You have to make it where you can touch it, and it's unexpectedness, and there's the emotion and all that other stuff, and we can find out about those ingredients that we might be missing, or maybe need to tweak our messaging or storytelling, or maybe we've been using the same old for too long. We need to bring it back to life because those competitors are catching up to us, or the industry is just shifting underneath us. So now is the time to take action, so that way you can close larger deals, increase revenue per sale, and get ahead of the crowd. And that's whybuyersayno.com to find out about that book. Stop discounting, close bigger deals, build recurring revenue, and sell your superpower in an AI world. We've been speaking with Mr. Maury Rogow, the author of Why Buyers Say No. Thanks for showing up, stopping by, enthralling us with some fun stories and advice. I'm glad that you showed up.
I appreciate it, Robert. This is really fun. Thank you.